Hey guys, this is another coaching session I got for chess from Chess Dojo Online Chess Club I joined a while back. So I just figured I'd upload it because it's pretty cool. I was able to learn a lot of stuff from the free coaching I got. Well, it wasn't really free. I mean, it was free as in terms of like members of the Chess Dojo will coach one another. That's encouraged within that program. Um, but I did have to pay for membership to the Chess Dojo though.
Okay, so I thought it was an interesting game. I'm just curious about a few things. Um, Instead of knight f6, I thought they were supposed to take on d4.
I think they were, yeah, I think the engine said that.
Like you can play this and you can play the Scotch Gambit, but I don't understand knight f6 because I thought this whole thing is not supposed to work. After knight f6, I thought you can just do this.
That or they said D5 is the best move on the engine.
Yeah, but at least d5, at least you have to calculate why this is um, everything you want, which it probably is, but like they might go knight b8 or knight a5 or something. Like if they go knight b4, I mean, you probably do want this, I guess. But the reason I was curious and what I put in my note earlier was that I thought you can do this. And I don't care about the computer evaluation very much. I'm just curious why this doesn't work. I'm not a big e4 player, but I was curious. If they go knight e4 here, there's this trick queen d5, which I don't think you want anything to do with. Like you're in what the 4 to 600 cohort. I don't want like I don't think anybody with I don't think anyone with black wants this position in any cohort. There's a similar trick in e45 openings for
Wait,
black.
wait, why is this bad for black? I'm not sure. I know that the
Well,
E4 knight has to move. Wait, couldn't he go G5? Oh,
hmm.
oh, but he's protected.
Hmm?
He's protected by his queen there, so it's just an
Yeah, but
even
it's
trade.
protected by the bishop.
What? No, I mean
You can
I
do this.
couldn't. Oh, wow. I didn't see that.
Yeah, so this is the kind of the problem. And there's this similar queen. There's a queen d4 trick, similar thing for black in one of the main lines for if you do this. There were similar reasons why something like this doesn't really work in a lot of cases. So if you go like knight f6 or I think it's here, um, and knight f6, there were similar reasons usually why this kind of thing doesn't really work. But there's a very famous one where you can do this like the sorry let me go back. I'll show you the exact one I mean. There's this thing. And it doesn't really work for white.
Huh.
So there's this kind of queen d4 trick where you let something take the e pawn either with white or black, and then you basically attack that base. And it usually comes with some sort of a double attack.
Okay.
So this is what I was thinking of when I saw your game. I was curious why you can't. So I understand like d5 might be the computer's favorite move. I don't really care, as I said, but I'm just curious why you can't do this because they have to do if they can't play knight e4, they have to do something else, like knight g4, and I mean if they really want to do this, they're welcome. They're kind of wasting a lot of time doing this. And in the meantime, you get a lot of kind of free development for white. I don't think this is a great idea. I don't think white should do. I don't think. Don't you think black should do this?
So
Even if they
DX
well,
E5 was my
technically
best
can't.
move there.
I don't know about the best move. It just looks like the most human move. Like
Yeah, as a
if
human
you think
move.
D5 is the best move, but as a human looking at this, I just don't understand why this doesn't work. Like if DE5 doesn't work, I don't quite understand why it doesn't work.
DX E5
It looks
was
like
the
it works.
second highest recommended move by the engine, actually.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, as a human, this looks very reasonable. Like, when I was looking at this, you can play knight g4, but I was just trying to work out why you can't do this. Like, knight g4, queen d5, I think you have to go knight c5, and, like, you go bishop c4, hit f7, and they either play knight e6, which I don't know if people under 1,000 do this, will be willing to play this move. Like, the more natural way to do this is queen e7, but then you're kind of like that bishop on f8 is supposed to be developing somehow. Like that might be okay for black in that I don't think black will lose immediately, but also because they will play some sort of knight before maybe. But I also don't think black should do this.
Yeah,
Like you're told, like solid opening lines, development, etc.
yeah,
And you're telling me this is a good idea? I don't think black should do this. Like black maybe can get away with this, but that's probably as far as I would ever push it. I don't think you'd say anything else about this. You put on the engine, yeah. Like this is what this is plus 1 point. This is nearly lost already for black.
yeah.
You can argue about whether you think plus 1.2 is lost or not, but it's at least I don't think this is a good idea. From a human perspective, I don't think you should do this. It's also harder to play for black because white has castled. They put their bishop on a natural square. The knight's good. The other pieces are coming. Whereas black will have to find something to do with all of these pieces that they've put on top of each other.
Yeah, his
So
bishops are
even
all
if,
trapped. Yeah, he's
like,
kind of
what
in
I
a
would say is
cramped.
like,
He's very cramped here.
yeah, like even if this is what plus 1.2 according to the engine, I don't believe that. I think black will lose very quickly if black is not really, really, really careful.
He'd have to work on fianchettoing the bishops, I guess, right? Or I don't know.
Something, but like no, I mean they're probably going to play d6, but I don't think that's a good idea. So, like, you're gonna have to argue that this is okay, based on the idea that you can play either knight e6 or bishop e6. But knight e6 or bishop e6, they both look bad. This, I guess, at least forces you to move the queen, but like this also looks very bad. And this is what I mean, like solid development. This is not. This is basically black walking on top of themselves.
Yeah.
I don't know why you would do this.
It says queen
This is
d8 is next.
immune.
That makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, but you will lose your pawn structure, and d6 is weak for no good reason. And again, white hasn't done anything wrong. All their pieces are on reasonably sensible squares. The queen is maybe blocking this bishop temporarily, but knight c3 will come. The queen will come out to some normal square. Attack that. Bishop e3 will come, etc. Rook d1 will come, all very quickly. Else black does whatever black is doing.
Yeah.
I'm kind of I'm throwing out ideas there, but that's how I think about this. I'm just like, well, this looks awful.
Yeah.
I don't like, without a good reason, I wouldn't do this. I really wouldn't do this without a very good reason. And there are some lines black like there are openings black plays where they do this kind of thing, but they do it deliberately. But this doesn't look like one of them. This just looks like asking for trouble. So I was curious. Yeah. So basically, that's like it all goes back to this point about, yeah, like it says d5 is the best move, but it's going to go d5 knight b8, which yes, you can play, but also not sure it's a great idea. Knight e5 is a free pawn, bishop d3, and then knight e5. If you play this and play d6 or something, you've blocked your own bishop in. You've developed and undeveloped this thing. And again, white's not done anything particularly wrong other than close the center a little bit. But they will have options to do something about that in very short order by playing the following moves.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
With like a very natural set of development: bishop e3, knight c3, c4, castles, h3, without having to do anything weird. And black has wasted tempi going knight b8 to c6 to b8 to then play d6 and block their own bishop in. So they're going to have to play bishop e7, find something to do with the knight, maybe knight h5 or something. Still, like, it might be fine, but also, again, it's not as bad as d takes e5 and knight e4, but similar thing. Like you're kind of just causing yourself problems. So knight f6, I don't think is a good move. And computer agrees. Yeah, you're kind of supposed to take. And I just thought that was kind of forced.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seemed kind of helpful for you. Like there's more than one good move. I'm seeing here the engine. The engine suggests the third move is knight e5, which is also good for white, but I wouldn't play knight e5. I would never play knight e5. Either play d5 or de5, and if both of those moves are good, black's done something wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if that's what they're doing, then yeah, what are they doing? So knight c3, I think is like I said, you have other moves, d5 or d5, and both look good. Yeah, knight c3 is probably fine, but it's just again you have these other moves. Yeah, so this d5 now doesn't work because the same trick doesn't really work. You can still see my screen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can do this, but the same thing doesn't work because compared to the other line, here knight c3 is possible. If the knight isn't on c3, which it isn't originally, then instead of having to go back to knight c5 or something, or go knight g5 and hang itself, they have this additional option of playing knight c3. So the same trick doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
I also put my note earlier, but I didn't say it. So yeah, so like you can try the same thing, but it doesn't work anymore, and you just kind of lose. I mean, I don't even think it's too strong to say this just loses. Like you hang a rook for no particularly good reason.
Yeah.
Then details, but yeah, I think you just lost. Strange. So what do you say about bishop d2, which I think is probably the only move? I don't care about the other moves the engine is suggesting. A3 and queen d3. I don't. Queen d3 is possible. A3 to play queen d3. I don't think anyone plays a3 here. I think the computer's top suggestion is nonsense. A3. I don't believe in that. What's the idea? The idea is what? To play this, and probably play queen d3 here and argue this is a good idea? I mean, if you're going to do this, I would probably just start with queen d3 instead of a3. You can play queen d3 here without weakening your pawn structure unnecessarily with a3. At least this threatens the knight, which kind of forces you to take one way or another. Takes, knight c5, somewhere. I mean, queen e3, queen c4 even? Is that nuts? Queen c4, yeah, you have to defend the knight somehow. You can probably play b6. And the knight's reasonably stable here, but still, you can continue chasing it. I don't think it should be all that bad. Queen e7, just play natural moves. This can't be so bad. Yeah. Well, computer's holding a 0.6 here for black. It's probably fair. My structure's not good. And the knight is reasonably solidly defended now. But still, it's hardly the end of the world. I think it's probably more relevant that bishop a6 is coming than anything else. Although bishop a6 I guess doesn't immediately work. You can do this. And king takes, I guess. And claim this is okay? Yeah.
What? Yeah, I don't know. It's
I'm just saying, you get here somewhere, and you might lose the e-pawn. But yeah, so black is a bit better here because your pawn structure is. I just didn't put a series of captures on the board, just a series of captures. kind of semi-forced. Your pawn structure is not great for white versus black's nice pawn structure, but you're not actually down material, so you're worse, but you're not lost. You
Yeah.
have to go rook e1 next, but as I say, you're kind of okay here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The details aren't important. I'm just saying, like, I can see myself playing queen d3 here, but I don't really understand the computer suggestion. I think bishop d2. I think what you played is a good move.
Yeah, I
Like this
thought
is
for a
ultimately
while about
this
this
is
one.
ultimately the engine. I think this is a good move. Like the only alternative I see here is queen d3, which, like I said, is not certainly like under 1500. I don't think anyone plays queen d3.
Yeah,
You
because
should be.
I don't feel comfortable bringing my queen out that early. Like if I can avoid it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. Like I said there's various reasons queen d3 might be a decent move, but again, under 1500, I don't think anyone even considers it. So I thought this was really good. That's kind of forced. I think that's also forced. Like you can't give up the pawn if you don't have to.
Yeah.
Well, what were you considering here? You said you were proud of this.
Yeah, because normally
Mm.
I would just forget about that pawn and hang it and take with the knight to avoid bringing my queen out too early. And I had this
Mhm.
rule: do not bring your queen out until you've castled and until just let's just keep it where it is for a long time because um, otherwise, once my queen's out, I just tend to find that I'm using her too much and she ends up just being chased around the board and I lose a lot of tempo. And so I had this rule: don't bring the queen out. But somebody told me like,
Mhm.
no, if as long as your queen is not attacked right away when you bring it out, you can retake with the queen very early in the game, and don't be concerned with that. That's fine. And so I applied what they told me in this game right away, and it was a great move, and it actually saved me from hanging the pawn on e5, which I think I would have done. I think I would have just not noticed that or been like, well, I have to do something, and so I'll
Mhm.
give up that pawn. I'm willing to give it up. Um, so I was just happy that
Yeah,
I used the queen instead.
good advice. Yeah, no, I think it's by far the best move. It makes perfect sense. And you're right. It's not attacked immediately. Like it's kind of attacked by that bishop, but there's no need for that knight to move. So the queen's not attacked. You'll have time to move the bishop and get castled or castle queen side or whatever you want to do. You'll have time to do all of that here.
Yeah,
So I thought it was clearly a good move. I can see why you're proud of it. It's good. Like I said, it's a very good move. Castles make sense.
well, like I said,
Yeah.
it's like probably an obvious move for most people, but I was proud of it because it was something that broke a bad habit that I had, and I was applying a lesson I had just learned about being willing to be a little more not aggressive, but a little more willing to use the queen, especially like to recapture near the beginning of the game.
Yeah. So you play bishop d3, and I like your reasoning for this, but you said the computer said this is a mistake.
Yeah, I was just trying to develop the bishop, and I thought that square looked fine, and I was even thinking about the Greek gift maybe. But then I'm not that experienced with the Greek gift. I don't know when you do it, but I just thought like Greek gift. That's kind of the diagonal you want for your bishop, so maybe I have something there. Because I thought if the king recaptured the gift, my knight could check, and then my queen could jump in. But then the queen was kind of blocked by the knight if my knight threw the check. If the knight went g5 check after the king retook on h7, my light scored bishop, um, my queen wouldn't be able to follow up right away, and so I didn't see it all coming together in any type of
It
checkmate.
it it, it probably doesn't work.
Yeah, so I just abandoned it. But I thought, like, just in general, that seems like a good square for the light squared bishop on d3 as my next move. But um, I understood why bishop to c4 is superior here, because then bishop c4 protects the d5 square, which gives me better center control, and it also allows the queen to help in center control because the queen's then controlling d3 through d7, and you're taking away that diagonal from, or not diagonal, you're taking away that vertical from the queen if you block the queen with bishop to d3. So bishop to c4 is slightly better because then the queen has more squares she controls and is more active, and you also have a great square for the bishop as well. So it's kind of a win-win. It's just a little better move.
Yeah, I think it's probably a clearly better move, but it's for all those reasons. I think for all those reasons, it's a better move. It's also a more, I would call it a more natural move, just because there are ideas for black in some of these e4 e5 openings to play d5, even if it's a pawn sacrifice.
Yeah, that would stop d5 or make it
So,
harder.
I mean, here it might not work because you might be able to play d6, like here, like if I play castles, like bishop c4, d5 here, probably doesn't quite work. You can probably take this. But, like, just in general, like, you don't want to allow something like this where this becomes a problem. You can't move the knight.
Well, I could have just taken with the bishop, and then he'd take with queen, and then I've got retake with nx
There.
d5.
Take with the bishop?
Yeah, and then the queen takes, and then I could take the queen with my c3 knight. Or my queen.
Yes, the things you
Oh,
can't
no,
do
no,
this
I
one.
take with my queen. You're right,
Yeah, you have to take the queen for this to work.
So that's a good exchange for me, so...
Yeah, this one's good. I'm just saying, like there are cases where you need to be careful of d5 in general. But here, you need to find this sequence or d6. You know, the ed6 should also be okay, but you need to be able to deal with it. If you know what I mean.
Yeah,
The bishop on c4 helps deal with this. On d3, it doesn't do that.
yeah.
So say the same thing, bishop d3. And I'm not saying d5 is a good move, but I'm just saying if they try this kind of a typical thing, you can't really take it anymore. And like I said, they're releasing their bishop this way.
Yeah.
Either e6 or g4 or somewhere like this. And if you can't take it, you can't take it because of the pin. Sorry, from Carlos. If you can't take it, then yeah, not ideal.
But I would en passant there if he did that.
Yeah, you might have to play en passant, but I'm just saying the like in something like this, which is what I would call typical, I guess, something black wants to do in e45 openings. Being able to prevent d5 completely with bishop c4 is a big benefit.
Yeah.
I'm probably nitpicking, like I'm nitpicking a bit, but I'm just it's just something I was thinking about earlier when I was looking at the game. So I think bishop c4 is a better move than bishop d3, but I don't think bishop d3 is bad.
Yeah.
Like just getting out, getting castle, playing solidly is good.
Oh, I think they also wanted me to, like, queenside castle instead of that move is another possibility.
Yes, it's a queenside castle I like.
And I actually have a question about that. I loved that move. That would have been almost preferred, I think, but I have never been a queenside castler, and I wanted to ask someone, when do you know queenside castling is good? What are the pros and cons, and what are things to think about as far as that strategically? Because from what I'm seeing, don't I have to go king to b1 at some point, and then also a3 to kind of have the ideal setup for my king, and that is like an extra tempo loss just to get the king properly secured on the b1 square, and
Right away
you don't have that
like,
issue with kingside castling.
yeah, right away you don't have to. Like
Yeah, sometime later in the game, but that's still
yeah,
like an extra
like
thing on your to-do
eventually,
list that you avoid if you just castle kingside.
yeah, but you will have time for this is the thing.
You'll have time, okay, but doesn't it seem like just because you have time doesn't mean, I don't know. What would you besides that, what would you say are the pros and cons of going queenside castle?
Queenside castling is connected with the idea that I'm attacking you. So if you feel that your pieces are ready to go, all of this way, then you queenside castle.
Also, it has more to do with pawn storming on their king than it has to do with.
The whole point of opposite side castling. So they go kingside. The only reason I really seriously consider going queenside is if I am looking to go and attack with my pieces against their king.
With your pawn specifically, because you couldn't
Yes.
pawn. Well, you can pawn attack even with your king on that side, but that takes away king safety, and you have to know what you're doing, I guess.
Yes. Yes. You have to do like there's the King's Indian, which Kostia is all about repertoiring. And that's one counter example. That's one example where you both go kingside and black then pushes their pawns. But there were very few exceptions. That is
Yeah.
basically the only is the only time you basically queenside castle or sorry same side castle and then start pushing all your pawns is the King's Indian. It's kind of the quintessential example
Well, I have a question
of
then.
where to
So,
break the rules, but basically you don't do it. The whole point of castling is to get king safe. So in general, if you opposite side castle, you push pawns on the other side of the board.
I like that. Okay, so that's one reason. Now, I would say if generally speaking, I'm going to be developing the F1 bishop before I would be developing the D1 queen. Um, and had I done that in that order, because my queen didn't need to come, because in this game the queen needed to come out to retake, but in most games that would
Mhm.
not be the case. Um, so
Yep.
so if my F1 bishop would have come out, it would have made more sense to kingside castle. But because in this game, for whatever reason, my queen was developed first, then the rule of thumb would lean more toward queenside castling. Would you say if the game happens to go that way, that would be the type of game where you'd queenside castle?
Yeah, I mean, it depends who I'm playing. I'm generally quite positional, I guess. So I would kingside castle by default, unless I have a good reason not to.
Okay, in this game, queenside
But
would be more attractive because it
that's by
was.
personal choice. It's really by personal choice. There were some openings that are known that where like the key idea is to castle queenside. And in those cases, I would castle queenside. But if I have a choice between the two, and they both seem more or less reasonable, I will probably default to kingside castling, just because of the kind of player I am. But it's not. It's not a hard rule in any way.
So in this game, do you think queenside castling would have been the best thing to do given the
I
circumstances?
don't. I don't. I prefer kingside castle in
Oh
this
wow.
setting.
Okay. I was kind of thinking like, um, if I queenside castle, their queen is coming out toward the right half of the board. So is their light squared bishop soon, and I thought they're kind of pointing at
Where?
my. Well, I figured like
Yeah.
their queen might eventually go to like g5, and their light squared bishop might eventually go to f5, and they're going to be eyeing um, the b1 and c1 squares in those types of areas. So then I would be better
Yeah.
off kingside castling then. I felt like, but I could be wrong. I wasn't sure if that plays a factor.
I would just say that all I would say to that is that that's a long hope. There are more immediate problems for both sides. So that is a nice long term thought, but a bit too it's a bit too long term, bit too sort of generalized to be something to worry about.
Well, it wasn't that I was worried about. I was like, just in general, the flow of the game. My king
Yeah.
probably shouldn't be on the queen's side for that reason, like long term. Because castling
Don't.
direction is a long term decision after all.
Yeah, in general it is, but like I said, I don't think it's a problem here. Like you need explicit lines to worry about. Like you'd be more worried about losing the pawn after something like this. You should have more concern for things, more immediate problems. I don't think it matters very much where you castle, because here, for example, bishop c4, rook e8 is not really a good move anymore.
Well, if I queenside castle, I could have gone rook to e1 and protected the pawn.
Yeah. But the question is whether you can legitimately do this.
Rook to e1, yeah. So
Mhm.
then I'm protecting it twice. He's got one attacker on it. Oh no, two attackers on it, and I've got two defenders, so I'm okay. But then he could then go d6, and then I'm starting to run out of defenders at that point. Unless if I went queen to g5, but then he could just go h6. I'm not sure. Then I could go queen to g3.
What do you want to play, d6? No?
Yeah, if he did
d5?
that, then I would have to. Um,
Take?
oh, I didn't see that. Oh, I could retake though. So I don't know. That's
Take. You can't really take back. You lose a pawn. Yeah?
yeah, that's not too good.
Oh, you have some weird sack. Okay, you probably have some weird sack. Okay. Forget about this. But in general, I'm just saying, so if you have to do this safely, you can probably do this safely for black. You win a pawn for black. All else being equal, you're good here with black, and your pawn structure is not great for white. So this has to be good for black.
Yeah.
So like I said, I think like passing direction is careful, but like I said, you're worried about these long-term considerations about where it might be best based on general rules, and I think that's a good idea. But say if you don't see that queen g5 can be traded, it's going to be less relevant. If you know what I mean.
Well, is there any takeaway I can have, in your opinion, of like what when do you queenside castle versus kingside? It's just preference, or is there like a rule of thumb you
No,
use?
like if there's a weakness and if I think there's an attack. So, for example, let me show you an example. The moves don't particularly matter, but um, this is an opening. Okay, and this is a choice by black. So black makes a weakness on the king side. They're going to go bishop g7 on castles, but they've essentially moved a pawn closer to you, which means that this is going to hit one square quicker. And the general plan for both sides in this position looks like this. Bishop g7, f3. F3 is not strictly required, but you go queen d2, knight c6, castle's queenside, like this.
I like white's position here a lot.
Yeah, and this is theoretically you can make arguments about this position. The general plan is that black will go bishop b7, rook c8, or rook b8, and a5, and their plan is to go a5, b5, a4, b4, etc., and push these pawns because their king's over on the king side, so they want to push the queen side pawns. Black, on the other hand, is basically going to do the following. White's going to do the following in some order.
Okay.
And this is an example, just as an example of like, this is like theory of what you should do. Both sides are doing what they're supposed to do here. Black went kingside because that's where they wanted to be safe, protected by their bishop. But because in this case, like in terms of like why you would castle queenside here, that pawn is what's called a hook. It's closer to you, so you can hook onto it. When your pawn goes and it hooks here, black's going to be forced to respond. It'll take you two moves, h4 and h5, for black to respond. The corresponding idea for black is to go all through this, but they might have to go a6 first to support b5. So it's going to take them one move, two moves, three moves before they have to do anything at all. And that's not even the end of the world. They go 92 normally. And then you have to decide whether, usually they have to go a5 as well, a5 and a4. So this will take them, like ignoring piece moves, just pawn moves. This is going to take them 5-ish moves before white has to respond. and do anything. Whereas white's attack is basically 3 moves. It's basically H4, G4, H5. And then stuff happens.
Yeah.
And you can argue about it, but that's why white queenside castles here. And goes opposite side castling and goes with this pawn storm. They say, yeah, that pawn is basically a liability, and I'm coming for you. Because it's there, generally it's accepted more or less that the white attack is faster. These pawns are back here. There's no serious weakness, so black has to push their pawns all the way down the board before they force some sort of concession from white.
Got it. Okay. So that's a good example then. If you have a hook
Yeah,
opportunity, a pawn hook.
yeah. This is a classic example of theory where both sides do what they're supposed to do. The reason black still does this, even knowing this is coming, because they basically argue that you're not mating them on the king side, and when their queen side play comes, it'll be really good. And then, depending on how it plays out, that's true.
Okay.
Like it's a battle of ideas. I basically say I can't really stop your like black wouldn't do this if they could stop it straight away. But they basically argue that they can't stop white doing this. White is going to do this basically in almost every. I gave up this opening with black because I got bored, not because I had bad results, but I got bored of getting exactly the same position every game. All of this happens. This all happens. Rook c8. You can play this thing called the Chinese dragon with 10 rook b8, and there's lots of theory. And you have to decide whether you ever take on d4 or whether you go knight a5, knight c4, etc. All this idea, but you have the same ideas every game. And white basically goes like this. And I gave it up because I got bored and because it's easier to play for white. It's much easier to just go this way with white than it is to defend this with black.
Okay.
It doesn't matter what the computer says. The computer kind of argues that black is slightly worse, but black shouldn't lose. And in practice, I had good results with black. I won most of my games at 1,500, 1,700 over the board. But I got bored, so I play other stuff now. But this is just a very clear example of why you would go this way. Like I said, it's not quite as clear why black pushes their pawns. The main reason they push their pawns is because they can't push the pawns around their king because white's already coming for them. Making more weaknesses is a bad idea. And if they do nothing, if black sits still, white wins. Black has to do something. The only thing they can legitimately do is push on the other side of the board, even if it's slower. They kind of have to. If they do nothing, they lose.
Okay.
So this is kind of an example of why you would opposite side castle and reasons for it. Like I said, every game will be a little bit different. But like as a general rule, that's one of the like classic examples that people use to illustrate this point. It's one where you absolutely castle both sides, and the idea is a pawn storm based on a pawn hook.
Okay.
This is not a good move.
Yeah, it's wasting a tempo. I think I should have castled here instead.
Yeah, it also runs into stuff. It starts walking into the e-file. Yes, you will get castled, but also yeah. This is definitely not a good idea. You can avoid this. Like you might even be able to take it. I mean, I don't think you should lose. Like you might have to go rook e1 or king f1, but again, you might be able to do this. You can also maybe argue to play bishop e2 and be fine.
I'll probably do that.
They'll probably get a shattered structure, but they can't go queen e7 right away. You get one more move to castle kingside or queenside. You might even still go queenside here. But basically, you'll get one more move to get your king safe. But you still shouldn't. So this would still be better than queen e3 because queen e3 walked into this. It makes the same idea more or less deadly. That's why the computer doesn't like it. I assume. As a human, I also don't like it for this visual reason. Even if it's totally fine, it just visually looks like you're asking for.
Yeah. All I was thinking there was, okay, my my e5 pawn. I'm trying to defend it, and it's got two attackers. It's got the d pawn attacking it, and it's got the c6 knight attacking it. So I only have
Yeah.
the f3 knight defending it, so I need one more defender. And I was like, man, I wish that d3 bishop was a dark square bishop or whatever, so I could put it on.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was just thinking like that thing needs a second defender, and I saw the queen can do it, but what I didn't realize is that he has e8, and then he'll have three attackers. So in that event, basically, the pawn is doomed. I'm not going to be able to out defend their attacks on that e5 square. So I should have just given up on trying to protect it anymore and focused on continuing development.
Agreed. I more or less agree with you.
So that was a good lesson learned for me. I should have looked at like what will be his next move, and I should have seen e8.
Yeah, so this kind of nice idea, but this is a bad idea also, I think. I get the point. You're going to take on h7. But I think you lose, right? Yeah, not because of that though.
Yeah, they said that if he had gone f5, I would have just had to drop my queen back to e3 and just wasting tempo.
That's what I'm wondering. I think it's worse than it's a tempo, but you also cut this idea out forever, more or less. And it doesn't really weaken the king. You can't afford to take, so you have to just move the queen back. You can't take.
Yeah, or I think I had to move the queen to e2 even. I'm not sure what
yeah, you have to go back somewhere. I don't think it even matters all that much where you go. E3, E2, they're probably both bad. Yeah, I don't quite understand why. I just make simple moves for black, and they all seem to work for white, or work for black. Again, you don't really have a tactic anymore. Or the idea of a tactic. What would you play here?
I think I would fx e5.
You lose though. I take e5, loses right away. No, this just loses right away.
Oh wow, that's horrible. Wow.
This is why bishop d3, queen e4 is considered bad.
Well, I might not have done that if I thought longer. I answered you like in 5 seconds. If I had that position in a game, I would think for 5 minutes, and I might not have done that.
That's fair.
In a bullet game, though, I would have done that.
This is the general idea, but this is like just in general why I didn't. Why the computer dislikes it, and I also kind of dislike putting the queen on the e file at all.
Yeah.
You run in not even just specifically this tactic, but this kind of a tactic. You're just increasing the chance that this works for black. Maybe your opponent doesn't find it, but you're kind of causing yourself problems. I don't like anything they just did. Also, why don't you take? Is there a reason you didn't take?
I ran through it and I was like, okay, I would take, and his king can just go f8, and then I would go queen h8 check, and then his king would go e7, and then I would queen takes g7 was what I calculated, so I get 2 pawns, but then I felt like it wasn't worth just kind of the risk, and I didn't see any continuation. I also definitely did not see queen h4 check, in which case he would have had to go king f8, and then I could have jumped my queen. I mean, I could have moved my queen back to queen e4, e4 and started or continued where I started off, completing a full
Yeah,
circle.
but like here, even something like this, I don't care what the computer says. Here, you're fine. I'm just curious why you don't play Queen H7 because, and the reason I ask is because like in analyzing the games, I'm always curious, right? Your whole point, the whole point of everything you just did, three Queen E4 was to take. That was kind of the point. So if they
Yeah,
let you
I
do it,
just I didn't see a
why
mate.
didn't you do it?
I didn't see a mate continuation. The only way I would do that is if I thought I could checkmate. But
Wins a free pawn. It wins a free
yeah,
pawn.
I guess I just thought like, oh, here's another thing. I thought so here I am like going on this crazy journey with my queen that's not going to end in mate, and I'm not sure if I'm leaving something behind that's going to be trouble for me. And the biggest thing is I didn't like that my king was not with good king safety at all. And then
Okay, but
I'm like leaving with my most powerful piece on some adventure that only gets me a pawn while leaving my king behind exposed. I just thought it's too risky.
so what about this then? If that's what you're worried about, why not do this?
Um,
Don't play Queen H8. Don't do any of that. Just win a pawn,
I guess
win a pawn,
as
and then
far
get
as
your
that
king
is,
safe.
oh, I just saw he has e4 and then he's forking um two pieces, and I was like, uh,
Hmm?
see
What's he
now
doing?
now he could go e takes um I mean r takes e4.
Great,
Um,
cool. I win a rook. I'm great. It's winning. Straight winning. Completely winning. Totally winning.
oh, it's true. I could also have retook with my queen too.
Oh yeah. Also queen takes, but knight takes looks really natural. You're winning. A computer says you're winning, and you're up an exchange and a pawn, and you're winning, and your king
Well,
is safe.
I
You're
didn't
winning.
I didn't play I don't calculate that deep yet, and so I have to rely more on rules of thumb or something. So I was just like, my king's not safe. I didn't even consider castling after the queen's already kind of on the move on her mission out there on H7 land, and so I just felt like my queen is just so wacky looking way up there, and I never considered I could castle while the queens are in the middle of her little journey. I would have felt like I got to keep doing queen things, and I can't
Okay.
switch to defense all of a sudden while my queen's away in middle of nowhere land.
Well, all I would say is, the only reason I ask is the whole point is to take on h7. You can safely take a pawn on h7. That was the point of what you were doing. And you're when you were saying why you didn't do it, you said you were afraid that your king was
Well, no,
unsafe.
technically, when I moved my queen to e4, I was going for mate in one. When he moved rook to e8, his king had a way to escape, and so then I wasn't as interested. I just was trying to catch him off guard because if he would have, let's say he left his rook on f8, he didn't see the mate in one, and he instead did a natural development move of like bringing his light squared bishop out to let's say f5 or whatever. I would, or not f5. That would block me. Let's say he brought his bishop out to d7 or to
Somewhere
e6.
else. Sure.
Um, I had mate in one, and I thought he might not see
Mhm.
that coming. And so as soon as he gave his king a way to escape, I kind of abandoned the whole idea, and I was just looking at other stuff at that point.
Okay. Well, I would take that from this game. That, like I said, if they let you do what you're doing and it wins a pawn, do it. And I like that you are worried about your king safety. I agree with you. Um, and the plan you came up with, even if it's not mate in one, is actually a good plan. It gets rid of your queen being on the e file, gets rid of this problem that I don't like, and any version of your queen on the e file gets rid of this problem and gets your king safe and wins a pawn. It basically is. It's never going to be a bad idea.
Yeah, except even to set up to do it was a bad idea because it required two or three tempos lost just getting my queen to that position, and you were
Sure.
showing me that f5 and different things would have shut it down anyway. So the only reason I'm even in the position to do this is because he played poorly. He didn't see
No,
anything he could have
no,
done better.
nobody plays perfect. No one plays perfect chess. So you can get away with an awful lot of things. I really wouldn't worry about it so much. You can only deal with the problems you have in any like individual position. So forget about how you got there, if possible. It's not always possible, but if you can forget about how you got there, just deal with the problems you have to deal with.
Oh, and another thing I didn't like is if I go queen to h8 check, I thought he'll jump to king e7, and then now my queen is attacked by the rook, and that made me feel a little bit uncomfortable. I didn't consider moving the queen downward. I instead thought I'm supposed to go queen takes g7, and so I was like, oh, I got a second pawn now, but I just felt like I don't know. I thought if I could bring the knight on c3 up to d5, I could get one more check, but then I thought I just don't see the continuation fully, so I was like, oh, you're, yeah, but plus, if I did that with my knight, their queen would just take my knight, so
Yeah.
that wasn't there either. So I was like, yeah, I just don't see where I'm going with this, and I didn't want to go on a pawn hunting mission with my queen so early. But I guess I should have. A pawn's a pawn, and but yeah,
Pawn's a pawn.
I was like going after
And
pawns when my king's not safe just seemed dumb to me. So I just was like, oh, I'm not too concerned with the pawn. I want to get my position better.
yeah, so one thing from the way you're describing the game, one thing I would else take away. I feel like I'm just mentioning lots of things, but one thing to take away is that you're clearly trying to run on principles, which is a good idea. But then you're saying that I didn't do this because I didn't see the follow up. Well, one of the things about working on principles is that you don't always have to see the follow up. That's the whole point for principle. You don't need to see all the way to the very end to more or less trust that a principle is a good idea. The reason it's a principle is because it's generally a good idea.
Well, okay, like when people say like I went all out, even sacrificing pieces, going for a mate, but I didn't have mate. They said I shouldn't do that unless if I know I have mate first. Otherwise, I shouldn't be that aggressive and start sacrificing. I have to know, okay, I can see mate in 5 or whatever.
They're lying. But you don't need to do that.
Because if they successfully defend, then you're down material,
So
and
that
they can make punish you.
you will make almost no fun moves in a game of chess if you only play stuff you can clearly see all the way to the end.
That's probably a good point.
Seriously, you will do almost nothing. Like you will just sit there going, I would just shuffle back and forth because I'm too afraid to go anywhere. If you fully embrace that concept. But, all right, let's have a look at the game. Right, so they play g6. They stop you mating them. Fair enough. Rook d1's a good move. D5 is dangerous. Like the fact that that doesn't lose immediately is that doesn't lose immediately.
It said excellent actually, and the engine said it was really good. And what I was proud of it because I felt like because he can't retake with the rook, because if he takes the knight with the rook, I can take the rook back with my queen, and I'm up
Yeah,
two
no, the thing
points.
where it goes, this happens to not work. Like you have to make sure that f6 doesn't actually work. So I would say don't play knight e5 unless you're sure. And I'm gonna I sound sort of odd in that sense, but like I wouldn't play knight e5 until I was sure f6 doesn't work. It clearly doesn't work, but why does it not work? What do you think White should play?
You just showed it. It was queen d5 check, I think, or no, was that it?
Yeah, but queen d5 semi runs into this problem.
Oh, oh.
It doesn't fully work. The question is, why do you like say so? 95 is a good move, but you can play 95 because you didn't see it, or because you think it's a brilliant move.
all I
So
thought
again,
all I thought is that I never would consider he'd move his f pawn at all, because
mhm.
I personally don't move my king protection pawns as like strategic. I generally don't do that in general.
But he has a very clear tactical point.
Yeah, I didn't see that. I didn't see
So
all
I
the threats of
assume
his
that
rook and yeah.
I assume this is the reason. This is why I assume this is okay. This move bishop to queen d5 isn't great because bishop e6 happens, but I think you can do this with the point that you can kind of do this in the middle. I think this is the reason it doesn't really work. You block by playing bishop e6 in this kind of position, you block the rook. I think that's why it explicitly doesn't work. And then you have this idea of playing rook takes, where the queen is hit and your queen is not hit. 1 second. Your queen is not hit for 1 second. But this is tactics. This is doing a lot of tactics. So I think this is why f6 doesn't work. So I think knight e5 is a good move. I think knight e5 is a good move only if you
I got
understand
lucky.
why yeah, if you
It was
seeing
it was
things
a
to the
bad
end.
move from what I saw, but it was then it went back to being a good move because of stuff I didn't know about. So I actually like
Yeah,
for me that was a blunder, but then it
like
was a lucky good move when I blundered. A
yeah,
blunder ended
I'm
up
not
being
trying to be
good.
harsh. I'm not trying to be harsh. I'm just saying, like,
I don't care.
you
That's
either see
fine.
it to the end, or you see, so like I have a friend of mine who analyzes his games over the board games with an engine before he left the venue, never looks at it by himself, and then wonders why he's not getting better. And he says, "Well, I was clearly winning because the computer said at some point I was winning," but he has no idea why he was winning. He can explain it because the computer told him. But as far as I'm concerned, unless you can tell me why based on what you saw, and if you don't see it, that's totally fine.
I
It's something to work
100%
on.
would not have done that move if I saw
You saw,
F6 coming.
yeah. And if I was looking at this position and I was considering 95, I would see nothing other than f6. It's the only thing I would look at.
In fact, in my mind's eye, pretty much their king and its three pawns guarding it are I delete those. They're not relevant, and because they don't move, that's the king's protection pawns. They're not in the game. The only
So
thing that they're relevant for is calculating would I sacrifice to remove one of those pawns for some kind of tactic. But as far as considering those pawns to be a threat or relevant to my thoughts about what's happening on the middle of the board, I didn't consider them to be relevant. But it turns out they're very relevant, and he would have actually done f6 like if you were really good. And so I need to create a new rule of thumb that you do consider the king pawns to be a threat and factor that into your decisions in the middle of the board.
like I said, I would just say, like, look at where the rook and the queen are. Their rook is semi-threatening your queen, so you're getting rid of a pawn in the way. So you're kind of creating your own tactical problem. So you should have a solution. Your solution could be wrong. That's why you analyze your game, you put annotations, and you ask someone to look at it, and they say, "Oh, well, but why doesn't I don't think your tactical solution works. Here's something to learn from." But the point is that it's perfectly reasonable to not see it. That's fine, and you get lucky. That's fine.
I thought
You'll
his
get
next
lucky.
move would be like, oh, I lost a pawn. Oh well, I can't take that knight because he's got it protected. So at this point, I'm developing my last pieces. I need to get that light squared bishop out. I figured that would come out to maybe g4 and try to hit my rook, and so I would need to probably move that rook to e1, and or I didn't really have a plan beyond that, except he's probably gonna bring it bishop to g4 next. I did not even consider f6.
Yeah, like he could play bishop f5. He could play c5 to cement his own bishop in. He could try to break your pawn structure first and then go knight f5 or something. But I'm saying, if I was looking at this position, the only move I see in this position is knight e5 f6. And if I don't have a solution to that, I don't take on e5 ever. I don't look at it as that looks too dodgy. Even if I don't calculate it, I just go, do I have a way out of this? If I don't have a way out of this, I don't take that. That looks dangerous. Um, but I do a lot of tactics,
I
so
think I was also thinking like maybe that knight would I would just sacrifice the knight to take out one of the king's pawns because I've got a battery heading that way, and
it's possible.
maybe I'll bring my c3 knight up to d5 and start like coming after their king with my knights. Like, because then he could go f6 next and check, and then
Mhm.
I'd be really scary at that point. And I'm
It's
also
possible.
forking the e8 rook if I did that. So I was looking at that. I was like, man, bringing the
Mhm.
knights toward their kings looks really good to me right now, and that knight's protected. But I just didn't see like, well, what happens if he attacks with the pawn? This move was
So
a definite mistake. I calculated that
yeah,
I was like, okay, queen tray looks fine. Um, but I forgot that once the queen's off the board, I'm hanging my e5 knight. So I was like, oh, I shouldn't have played that. As soon as I released my mouse button, I was like, oh, he's gonna get my knight. But he ended up not seeing that. He just blocked.
that's fair.
So I got lucky.
Yeah, and like I said, it's perfectly reasonable to get lucky. Like I think you can. Can you do this? Can I do this? Not really. Okay. I was just wondering, can I do something stupid? The idea is that this would be okay. Or even this, but maybe not this. No, but this. But okay. Don't worry about it. Just curious. But yeah, so like the queen d5 is probably not a good move. But again, it's all about tactics versus positional things. You're both sub 1,000 or sub whatever 800. Like tactics are going to be more relevant than strategy. So I think you're thinking about the right things. Like the only thing I don't like about what you just said is that you're thinking about sacking for one of the pawns and this battery. General rule of thumb: if you set up a battery on the light squares and they play g6, you can forget about the battery for a long time.
Yeah,
The whole point of G6 is basically to prevent this ever being a thing, ever. It doesn't always work. Sometimes you can do stuff, but in general, I would stop. I wouldn't worry so much about how good your battery is once you've given them time to put something in the way of it.
yeah.
Make sense?
I'm,
It's
I
just
mean,
it's just when you left
I
out.
guess the biggest thing is I just wanted to get up my pawn back.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair. But the issue is f6. is just again f6.
Yeah.
But anyway, just in terms of trying to give you like a rule of thumb based on the game, that's another thing. Like, say you're talking about the battery, and that's why I thought a call would be better than me just giving you notes. Is like I said, your thought process is important to me. So if you're thinking about the battery, your battery's hugely less important once there's a pawn on g6 blunting it.
Well, yeah, I wasn't thinking about the battery that much at this
Mhm.
point in the game. I was just thinking about continuing to grab pawns, and I thought I had a free pawn. I didn't know there was some
Fair
kind
enough.
of scary tactic coming.
Yeah, that's fair. So f6 is a thing. f5 not a great idea. Queen d5 also probably not a good idea, but yeah, so bishop e6 kind of lets you off the hook a little bit. You can at least trade queens. You take on b7. Okay, looks fine.
Yeah, I thought that's a free pawn.
Yeah, no reason it's not. Um, fair enough. C3. Yeah, why? Why in God's name are they doing this? Why? Why are they doing this to themselves?
Oh, I think he saw my queen now is gonna take his b4 bishop next move, so he was like, well, I I had this bishop threatening his knight anyways. We'll just do the trade now that I was gonna do anyways eventually.
Okay. So, question. Um, Black Bishop c3 is a horrible move. Without the engine, why is Bishop c3 a horrible move?
Um,
Like it's a
I
tactic.
I
Why
think
is
it's a
it
good move,
horrible?
but obviously I'm
Right.
wrong. You're saying it's horrible. I'm just saying that from my
It's horrible.
perspective and from my opponent's perspective, we both thought it looked good.
Okay. So it's not a good move. And the reason is the following. Same as your knight was kind of in trouble with f6. The black knight here. How many moves does it have?
Um,
How many squares does it actually have?
oh.
If it were
Five.
attacked somehow,
Oh, does it have that it can go without being taken, you mean? Like safe
yes. How
squares?
many safe? How many safe
Um,
squares? No.
just one. E2, right? Oh wait, no,
So
that's not even safe.
yeah.
I
So the
don't think
reason
he
Bishop
has.
Move
I
is
think he's
horrible.
trapped completely.
Exactly. So his knight is trapped if it's ever attacked by a pawn. So he goes, here, please attack my knight with a pawn. Has nowhere to move it safely.
Yeah, I don't think he or I considered that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's fair. I'm just saying that this is a tactical point of why this is, I think, is a bad move, and why the bar is going up and down and up and down. The argument is just basically that he's like, knight is not attacked. You need to move your bishop before you're attacking it even once, and it's not even, it's defended. He goes from that being totally safe to uh, it being completely trapped.
Yeah.
Oops. Okay, and bishop d5 is probably fine. He still has to move the queen somewhere.
Hold on one second. I have an important phone call. My wife's calling me. Hold on one
All right.
second. Hello? I'm back. That was my wife. I gotta take over watching the kids. I have no choice at all
All
right
right.
now. But I really
No
appreciate
worries.
it. I learned quite a bit, and you helped me out for sure. I think we covered a lot of the key parts of the game. The rest, I actually started doing a lot better, I think. But I got the
Yeah,
win,
yeah.
so
Once you start crushing him, you start crushing him, and it was nicely done. Nice mate.
yeah. All right. Well, thank you. That definitely helped me out around my opening and mid game for sure.
No worries. Take it easy, man.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Bye.